What's the good word, Jets fans? It's your boy DKB here, man. Free agency kicking off day one. We already got some really exciting news that's come across. We'll kick it off with the very first piece of business, right? We have Justin Fields, our new quarterback, officially for the New York Jets. One of the interesting pieces about this whole ordeal is I think how the media is framing this, which may be much different from what I imagine the Jets within the building and even us as fans are viewing this as, right? The quarterback hierarchy right now has to be Tyrod Taylor's QB1. Justin Fields needs to earn and take that job and title away from Tyrod Taylor. The contract to me was crazy. So let's get some visuals and whatnot up here, right? Give me a quick second. $45 million contract, 30 million guaranteed, right? And the $30 million number is what I'm focused on here because you see all of these insane contracts, right? Think of like the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen, for example. I think it's 330 million he signed for, but realistically, he was guaranteed 250 million. Where did this go? All right, we'll work through that in the background. I'm not too worried about it, but still. So for 30 million, you're talking about a 2-year, $15 million average, right? You compare that to Tyrod Taylor, and obviously we were paying him to be a backup quarterback, right? But he signed for 2 years, 12 million. So just in the grand scheme of things with how you're looking at it, you're already talking about, from a number standpoint, Justin Fields needs to hit the field immediately, right? So I think a lot of people are going to be pushing to see him. And the way that leading up to this signing that we heard analysts, et cetera, again, talking about is the fact that Justin Fields and the expectation from Aaron Glenn and company is that they believe his best football is ahead of him. I don't know if you buy into the first 6 games that he played with the Steelers and you feel really good about that. Had a solid enough touchdown to interception ratio, threw for decent amount of yards, all that good stuff. And the 4-2 record, I think, is what you lean on the most when you look at it. But I hear a lot of Steelers fans, they did not love whatsoever the performances that Justin Fields was putting up based on the talent that they have, based on Arthur Smith, running their scheme and the type of plays that were being called. It felt I'd seen a handful of games, and here's how it looked to me. The offense was either scaled back a lot because there wasn't a ton of confidence in Justin Fields, or the fact that they only had Pat Freiermuth and they only had George Pickens working on him, but they weren't taking a ton of deep shots, hampered Justin Fields' ability to do things like roll out of the pocket, take advantage of play action, have those deep shots to George Pickens. Really, everything was a lot of underneath, or it was kind of 1-2 reads and go. So we'll have to see how that really plays out. But I put this analogy out there when we dropped the video for Justin Fields being linked to the Jets, right? From a Pokemon standpoint, if we're looking at this as picking your starter Pokemon and going through your journey, Jordan Travis right now, just looking at the quarterback room, Jordan Travis is your Charmander. He's your Squirtle. He's your, I wanted to say Turtwig. I'm forgetting Bulbasaur, right? Justin Fields, I look at as being that second level, right? Charmeleon, Ivysaur, Wartortle. Tyrod Taylor is going to be your kind of transcendent, evolved third version, right? So from that standpoint, it's hard to imagine Justin Fields really being able to leapfrog what Tyrod Taylor can do. Explosive deep ball, effective, efficient deep ball, very underrated. And we've seen it a ton during camp, right? Touchdowns to Garrett Wilson, over 50 plus yards, pretty consistently. He was getting guys like Irvin Charles to flash. He was getting guys like Alan Lazard, pretty significant hype over the course of the offseason with his ability to find him deep. And I think a lot of the players will respond to that. From a positive standpoint, my man, I think there is a lot of good that you can draw from this, right? You can look at the Aaron Rodgers, excuse me, you can look at the Justin Fields, Garrett Wilson connection from when they were at Ohio State for, I believe they overlapped for 2 years, may have just been a single year. You can take a look again at, depending on how you feel, what Justin Fields was able to pull off with the Steelers last year. But all in all, I think it's not an albatross of a contract, but I think it does potentially set up Justin Fields for failure. Now, if the goal with this contract was get him in the building, we feel really good about him. Tanner Engstrand signs off, feels like he can call plays that will really highlight his ability, assuming he can win the QB1 job, then I'm absolutely all for it. And at that point, if he's playing effective football, if he's looking like, I don't need top 10. If he's looking like a top 16 quarterback in the NFL, then I think you're getting pretty solid value here, right? And you're also avoiding the situation that the Vikings found themselves in, right? Where they wanted to really just take that 1-year gamble, and it ended up biting them in the tail because Sam Darnold had one of the best seasons, if not the best season of his career. Really should have, given the talent and everything, but it's a very different situation and predicament that Justin Fields is going to find himself in, because the Vikings were an established team. They were coming off of an excellent year with Kirk Cousins. Yes, there was a ton of pressure on Sam Darnold, but again, you're talking about a highly effective running game. You're talking about having one of the best, if not the best, wide receiver in the game in Justin Jefferson, in addition to having Addison out there with them as well. They signed TJ Hawkinson to come over and help him out. So the supporting cast isn't going to be to that same level for Justin Fields. And you also have to think about the fact that they've kind of been established in terms of their coaching ranks as well. We're going to have to do a lot of figuring things out on the fly. Aaron Glenn, he's still going to have to adjust in year one, no matter how great we think he may be, hitting the ground and running. And same thing for Tanner Engstrand, right? It's the same exact predicament Robert Saleh was in. Rookie head coach, rookie OC, and then technically at that time rookie quarterback, right? But Justin Fields is much closer to being a year one rookie, in my opinion, than being a 5-6 year veteran type player. Granted, he's been in the league for almost 5 years or so now, right? So I think that's going to be the biggest dichotomy in that whole situation here. I'm going to struggle to really believe that Justin Fields is going to come out and win that job in, the first month or first couple weeks of training camp. But we'll see how things fall out here. I did see Connor Hughes, and then I'll go into diving into some of the comments from you guys here. Appreciate everybody piling in here as well. See a couple of names: Caden, Matthias, Beatra, my man. Appreciate you flowing in. I did hear that it looks like the next likely target for us should be, and it's not going to be an exciting move, but wide receiver Tim Patrick. He was with the Lions. Aaron Glenn seems to have a pretty strong affinity for him. I would imagine, again, Tanner Engstrand and Aaron Glenn, they're going to sign off on anybody on that offensive side of the ball that we want to target from the Lions, and really that's the only guy that comes to mind. But let's get into some of what we have here. So Caden was a bit behind the 8 ball, it looks like. We officially got that signing locked in. Yeah, so that's the way it looks, right? That's the way it should be on paper when you look at the contract value. But if anything, so here's where I'm at with it. If we're going to say that with all of the moves we've seen Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji making since they've come in, right? And it feels like Woody Johnson has peeled back some of those layers of wanting to have his hands in everything and signing off on everything. He's kind of letting these guys at the surface level make the moves that they feel are going to bring us success. Then regardless of the contract you give this guy, unless you were giving him a Sam Darnold level contract, 35 to 40-ish million a year, something insane. This isn't so much money on an average annual basis where I say he's the default starter. And if anything, if Tyrod Taylor does end up still walking out there as the week one starting quarterback, I would say this is an excellent sign that they're not doing anything on the merits of contracts that are handed out. They're doing it based off performance. Tyrod Taylor would be arguably the better player in my viewpoint right now. Maybe Justin Fields does surprise, but can he consistently outperform Tyrod Taylor as opposed to what would normally happen for the Jets, right? They say, well, man, Justin Fields just looks so fast out there. He's had a connection with maybe one or two guys, or we love the package that we can roll out with having him and a Breece Hall and a Braylon Allen in the backfield. We'll just try to run with this and see how it looks, and we'll work out the kinks as the season goes. I don't want to go into that territory. I would much rather just see Tyrod Taylor clearly won or Justin Fields clearly won. And then at that point, you can say, we'll put our foot down. Nobody's losing their job based off injury or based off a subpar week or two. If it's consistent negative performances, then yeah, we take a look at it. But outside of that, we'll see how those things kind of play out. My man B Trill, good day for the Jets. Yeah, so I thought this was going to be a quiet day overall. I saw the rumors heating up about Justin Fields, but I figured it might be something that lingered into day two. All in all, this might really be the big signing that happens for us today, which would be more than for sure what happened with the Dolphins. But I want to talk about the Patriots too, because they've been going insane on day one. I believe outside of trades, there have also been, of course, a ton of top-notch free agent signings for them as well. Fields to Wilson connection again. Yeah, I remember you mentioning that on the stream. I'm going to have to go back and watch some of that tape and check out some of those games, because it's going to be the only idea we have of if we should expect an instant connection between these two, or if it's something they're going to have to try to manifest once again. They're not paying Fields to be a backup at $40 million. I'm trying to think of the last time. So you had Cam Newton, and then I forget the quarterback's name that they drafted in the second round. Hold on. I was just looking at this when I was trying to think of an explanation before for something. So Cam Newton replaced, was it Jimmy Clausen, right? He was their second round QB. So you have, again, a guy is not going to be technically the same kind of money, but ideally is similar sentiments here, right? So you have that situation. You have the Seahawks when they had Russell Wilson after giving Matt Flynn a pretty big deal. So there's scenarios out there. And for the franchises that really do play on that performance-based environment, it's going to make sense. Does it suck that you poured that much money in and that guy didn't win the job? Of course. But again, are we going to, what's the player we're missing out on where the 12 to 15 million, 15 million that we're giving him this year? What's the player that we're missing out on where we say that money would have been better used that in that spot, right? That position. What's the deal, DKB? I'm liking the re-signing of Sherwood. Yes, that was a huge one for me for sure. Now we need to get a tight end, safety, right tackle, wide receiver 2, and a nose tackle on free agency. Yeah, so Justin Fields is the first signing to me where it's a move towards the starting group. I like something that was pointed out. I want to say if it wasn't Rich Cimini, it might have been Connor Hughes, but he mentioned the Jets have lined up their quarterback room now to where you have, I don't think a drafted player, right, if we do end up going the draft route, is going to be in the conversation at QB1. So you've locked up one of your signal caller positions, right? So the quarterback is either going to be Tyrod Taylor or it's going to be Justin Fields. And then you lock up Jamien Sherwood, who's going to be the quarterback of your defense. And from everything we saw last year, that defense really turned things around once Jamien Sherwood was able to come in, get guys aligned. You've seen the speed and how that really helped match Quincy Williams' play style, but as well be able to help shut down some of those passing lanes and things like that. So I think you see more deals done tomorrow for sure. Then either day one or I would even say day 3 or 4. I think they start to look at the landscape, start to pinpoint who a lot of these value deal players are going to be. And we'll take a look at kind of who's left in terms of the free agency big board here as well. But Yeah. Brandon Stevens to the Jets. Should I know who this person is? 3 years, 36 million. I haven't seen anything else about us signing anybody. Give me a sec. Nope. Last thing I had was one of the other backup cornerbacks. So I know we missed out on Carlton Davis from the Lions. Dante Jackson would have been the other big name. The old Panthers cornerback, recently with the Steelers, had the Steve Wilkes connection. 3 years, 36 million. I feel like somebody's trolling, but trade down twice to fill out your needs in round 3 and 3. So I'm assuming you're mentioning we'll pick up an extra 3rd round pick. Danger, my guy. We'll probably go for about an hour. So I'm putting out there. I'll probably drop this same link again. If anybody wants to kick it live, kind of get some of your thoughts out there verbally, feel free. Just signed Brandon Stevens. Let me get a hold of this. Cornerback. Okay. Who did he play with? The Ravens? Yeah, I'm behind the 8 ball. If it's news that came out recently, I guess I just didn't get the updates on the phone. So let's check this out. Brandon Stevens, he has 65 career games under his belt. Started off 17 for Baltimore last year. This is a 6'1", 215-pound cornerback. Doesn't have any major accolades to his name, but he doesn't particularly excel. So this is interesting to me, right? So when I'm looking at him, he generally gives up over 10 yards per completion. He doesn't have an exceptionally low completion percentage that he allows. So he's coming off of his 3rd best in that regard, 64.7% completion percentage last year. He's seen the 2nd most targets that he's ever had in his career, but he's given up almost 1,000 yards, 4 touchdowns, gave up his most yards per completion, had over 100 had over a 100 quarterback rating when targeted. So guys liked him. I would dig into him a little bit more, of course, off stream and kind of see why this makes sense. So at 12 million per year, that's not crazy. But what did DJ Reed land for his contract again? DJ Reed got 3 years, 48 million. 32 of that was guaranteed. So he's basically working off of about 10 to 11 million per year. Stevens got, you guys said 3 for 36, 23 million guaranteed. So about 6 million. Okay. All right. Fair enough. I was going to say, if you're in the same ballpark range, we should have just targeted DJ Reed, but I can't say it's a value pick at this point in time. Just the surface level stuff I'm looking at with Brandon Stevens. He doesn't even look like a surefire tackler, but I guess they like the size. I would have figured anybody we signed at cornerback would kind of be known as maybe not a master at their craft when it comes to man coverage, but definitely a bit of a technician, if you will. So maybe he has strong press traits, and then things outside of that tend to break down a little bit, but we shall see. Let me see. Is he at least a freaky athlete? So Brandon Stevens had a 9.2 RAS score. So yeah, he does pretty well. It's not overly quick, but he's fast. So his 10-yard split time wasn't great. He doesn't really have great agility either, it looks like. Okay. He seems like a piece to work with. I'm assuming since he's just coming off of his rookie contract, this is one of those buy low, aim high type deals. Outlaw. Good looks, my guy. Cap situation. So let's see. I don't know if these will update in real time as we're going through these signings, right? But according to Over the Cap, we are sitting at $47 million in cap space. And And I can see where they added Justin Fields and Brandon Stevens, but it doesn't look like the numbers are in. So we started off with 47 million. I don't know how the intricacies of the cap works, right? I'm assuming we're definitely pulling off the guaranteed money off the books, but then there's a lot of crafty ways you can break up the numbers on a yearly basis. Low risk, high reward. Yeah, and that's going to be the selling point. That's going to be the draw for anybody that didn't love the Justin Fields signing, right? It's the guy that we should have drafted over Zach Wilson. It's the guy that showed promise on bad teams. He just needs to be given that consistent situation, right? He's been the guy that people have wanted to put in, but then they jerk him back for a guy that they feel like maybe runs the offense more effectively, as opposed to allowing him to get comfortable and familiar and stuff like that. But I mean, we could have done worse, right? Ultimately, when I look at this is who are you going to get that was going to blow you away, if not a Justin Fields, right? It was kind of always going to be in the making that he was going to be the guy to come to us as one of the top type options outside of some kind of random trade that maybe pops up for us. Javon Hollins. As far as I know, he is still going through, I guess, having conversations. That I don't see anything in the way of that. Yeah, I don't see anything in the way of him leaning towards one team or the other. So he should still be up for grabs. Now, I would assume the conversation here is we probably paid a little bit more than ideal for Justin Fields, right? And Javon Hollins' projected contract value is somewhere between 17 to, let's just call it 21 million. It's a decent amount of money to fork up for what's probably going to be like a 3 or 4 year contract, right? Just sign him for the remainder of his prime years. But I assume we probably don't have an update on him until probably the last, couple hours here or so of day one of free agency or early tomorrow. Got you. Yeah, so Brandon Stevens, and by the way, as you guys know, much like when I break down the draft prospects, not only our targets, but our free agent classes, our draft class as well. I probably won't be able to get to it tonight, but I will be, kicking off the breakdown, the scouting breakdowns of these guys that we're signing as well. Good looks, my boy. Garrett Wilson posted Justin Fields in his story. Yeah, so one of the other points was that Garrett Wilson, I believe it was back in 2022, he did tweet out that rejoining Justin Fields would be a dream come true for him. Right now, obviously, when you come from playing with Zach Wilson, anybody in the NFL, he could have said Teddy Bridgewater would have been a dream come true. Anybody is looked at as an upgrade. But definitely in his case, where you at least want to have somebody that you've had a strong connection with in the past, as opposed to either somebody that's not an Aaron Rodgers or a Matthew Stafford-like guy. If it's going to be somebody that's technically unknown to you, it would rather be somebody that you've had a level of comfortability with. Fields is an ascending player. I think that is a bit of a wild take, in my opinion. Yes, the arrow is pointing up, but when I hear ascending, I like to think of a guy that's outperforming expectations. And when you have that former first-round draft status, it's tough to say ascending if you're not having a Joe Burrows, Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels type performance, right? And that's in the wildest cases. But even if you take those down a couple notches, I would say he's far from ascending in the sense that I'm explaining. Appreciate you, Outlaw. Winning free agency is never good. Yeah. So in our case, when we win, that generally means we're lining up for a losing season, right? And I wouldn't say we're winning anything just yet. So far, we've landed the quarterback that Aaron Glenn and Tanner Engstrand, according to reports, coveted, right? They think his best football is ahead of them. They liked what they've seen. I thought I had more reports coming in. They've liked what they've seen, and that's cool. If anything, I'll just be happy with the fact that they were able to go and get somebody that they felt comfortable with. So again, when I'm looking at this in my mind, they're setting him up to try to win that quarterback one job. He still needs to do that, but the plan that they have in place, you can see an easy idea and vision for, right? He has Garrett Wilson in the building that he's done well with before. You have Breece Hall in the backfield that'll help take heat off him. Same thing with Braylon Allen. The dual running back in the backfields package that you can roll out, triple option, RPO type stuff, Wildcat. I know June, the GM, is a guy that tends to favor stuff like that. There's a lot that you can work with from a creative standpoint when it comes to Justin Fields. Is the execution going to be there? I have a feeling that Fields' second year could be optional for us because only 30 is guaranteed. I prefer they front loaded unless Sherwood deals, unless it's okay. I got you. Front loading Justin Fields will be crazy, right? So let's say you don't do the full 30 in year one, because that would be insane. But let's say you make it like a 60-40 type break. You give him 18 to 20 million up front, and then he's working with like 8 to 10 million, something along those lines in year two. He would almost have to win the job. Otherwise, it'd be a colossal failure, because now you are paying him some of that top tier quarterback money. And for him not to be able to win that starting job and play that full season and have a successful full first season, he would be booed out of New York quicker than anything else that we've ever seen. Fields is similar to Lamar. Another wild take. No. One of the things I think we have to stop doing is anytime anybody has any exceptional running ability does not automatically mean that they're a Lamar Jackson or a Michael Vick or anything like that. There's different styles of running. There's different mentalities to running. And with Lamar Jackson, I think you are seeing that transcendent type dual threat quarterback play. He always seems to know when to run at the right time. When he is running, he's not turning into a scrambler, which when I think about that, I think of a guy that wasn't able to keep his eyes up, wasn't able to kind of track what's happening downfield and try to make a play. Lamar Jackson offers you that. But when he is looking at a designed run play, or when he is breaking outside of the pocket and the best option is to run, is 9 times out of 10 magic happening, right? He's making multiple guys miss. He's picking up crucial first downs. He's extending plays that ultimately end in touchdowns. Yes, Justin Fields is electric when he's running, but it's not those same qualities as Lamar Jackson. So in my opinion anyways, right? I still got to check out the games and stuff because I haven't really tuned in a ton to him, but from my purview and the handful of stuff I've been able to watch, that's the way I envision him. Bill signed Palmer. Yes. So I did see Joshua Palmer ends up going to him, another target that was connected to the Jets. Buffalo's making a ton of plays too, right? And I might have to try to drag my boy on for a separate stream to break down how their free agency went. But the Bills and the Patriots, they're not waiting around. They're not resting on their laurels whatsoever. They are making things happen. Ton of internal free agent extensions for them as well. But they're continuing to look to really supplement that offense for them. Yes. So I did see it. Took me to Google. I didn't get an alert for it, but we did give him a 3-year, $36 million contract. I believe it was $23 million guaranteed. Yes, $23 million fully guaranteed. Stephens isn't paid like a star, but he does look like a damn sure tackler, good at run D, so he looks on the surface like the anti-sauce. I mean, if that's how you view him, I'll keep that in mind when I go to check him out, but the stats paint a different picture. Now, obviously, I try to rely on the game film here, but normally you like those two things to match up at cornerback, and it doesn't look like he really stands out from a coverage standpoint or from a tackling standpoint. But, I mean, he did see a significant amount of targets and stuff coming his way. So we'll have to see what that looks like, right? Was it stuff deep? Was it stuff over the middle where he was really kind of on his own island? And I want to see if he was on an island or was he kind of trusted to some degree to win his one-on-one matchups. Steph's a Jet. Cool. Reed was beat a lot too. Yeah. So I think from a consistency standpoint, DJ Reed won a lot more of his matchups last year. This year, I think, was trying for the entire defense. Sauce Gardner, everybody, right, had steps back in how they were performing. But DJ Reed unequivocally drew some of the craziest matchups for CP2, I would say, in recent memory, and he was giving a lot of those guys hell. I don't know if you'd say the same about Brandon Stevens, of course, but he does bring that size component, and maybe that changes the complexity of some things. You are going to talk about one of the best coaching staffs when it comes to being able to coach up not just cornerbacks, but safeties as well. So I'm sure a lot of that went into play as well, where they say they like the tools, they like the film to whatever degree that was put up, and they feel like they could really improve on some of the things that probably caused problems for them last year. Feels just like yeah. I mean, your take is your take, my man, Robert. But yeah, you have some of the wilder stuff I've seen so far when it comes to Fields. Was Justin Fields considered a running quarterback out of Ohio State? Not from what I recall. I think he was putting up like somewhere between 300 to 500 yards of rushing. I think he was giving you maybe 5 to 6 touchdowns on the ground. It wasn't like he was looking to be that, transcendent rushing quarterback type guy. Seemed like he did a fair amount of his damage from, the pocket or play action, stuff like that. Fields is a tremendous athlete like Lamar is what I mean. Yeah. So yeah, from that standpoint, right, I think that's the draw for the New York Jets is that if things do go awry or they go left or things break down, he has the ability to go out there and do some of the same stuff that Lamar Jackson has. I just don't think that I've seen it and or that it looks much different from what you're seeing out of Lamar. Fields has a stronger arm than Lamar. That I don't think I'm qualified to comment to right now. Fields has a stronger arm than Lamar. Justin Fields. No, I can't really say that either because the Bears went and they he got himself an option when they went and traded for DJ Moore as their wide receiver one. He had George Pickens when he was with the Steelers. So it's not like he hasn't had a guy that he can rely on, a guy that he can take deep shots with. So I don't know if there's a ton of that's out there. But I don't know if his passes are like just cutting through the air, 50, 60 yards deep. I've seen Lamar drop a couple of ropes to like the back pylon of the end zone from like his own, 40, 45-ish, yard. But I mean, maybe Justin Fields has that in his bag. I won't say I've seen anybody necessarily highlight that as a factor for him, but doesn't mean it's not there. Yeah, so Morgan Moses was tough, but the contract that Morgan Moses got did not really make me say, wow, why didn't we jump all over that, right? 3-year, $24 million deal from them, and he got, how much did they guarantee him? Let's see, 3 years, 24. And I want to say I saw they guaranteed the first 2 years or so. 11 million guaranteed for him. So could we have pulled it off? Yeah. Was it absolutely necessary? I don't really think so. Now, the backup plan for him, I say, would be the argument for why they probably should have still just try and got this deal done, right? Matt Pert was the only other tackle that I heard had any kind of interest or connection to the New York Jets. Otherwise, they're kind of in no man's land here, right? But you look at the draft, you have plenty of options there at 7. It's probably going to be a bit of a reach. You could trade back. You'll still have plenty of options. So there's a pathway. There's a level to that. You can also consider the Carter Warren argument, right? Is this the year that he can finally try to piece it together and make something happen after having 2 relatively healthy off seasons? What you would imagine will be an improved coaching staff. And then do you try to pair him with a rookie and you just say, we'll see, who performs the best? I don't know. It would have been nice, though, to have the same starting five finally out there at the same time. But you can't get everybody, I suppose. Let me see what's out there real quick in the way of anything else is popping up on the Jets radar. Brandon Stevens, Justin Fields, cool. So one thing that I've seen noted out here for Brandon Stevens is the fact that Zach Rosenblatt from The Athletic highlighted the fact that he can play corner and safety. So maybe this is, I don't know. I don't want to say it's a cornerback being converted to safety, not at that price tag and based on what he's done, but maybe they have plans on playing him in some kind of hybrid role. Yeah, and I'm not seeing anything else out there in regards to any other targets just yet. So let's do this. Let's look at who is still potentially out there for us. What do I want to roll with? Who has one? PFF has to have something in real time, right? So see rankings here. Is this accounting for guys that are still available? All right, we'll play it this way. I think I recall a decent amount of the names off the top of my head, but let's look at some of the options we may have here for us. Share screen. Boom. All right. So top options, T. Higgins, and he was franchise tag. So Trey Smith, I want to say he just got himself. No, he was franchise tagged as well. Javon Holland, as we talked about, is still out there. I don't know if he makes it to that $17 to $20 million range. And if he doesn't, what would make the Jets the most attractive option for him? Now, maybe Justin Fields sways something one way or the other if there's other belief outside of the Jets of what he can turn into, or people just reasonably like Tyrod Taylor and they'll say, I'll take one or the other in terms of whatever quarterback wins. We also can't forget, not to the same extent that Brandon Stevens is, but Javon Holland is coming off a little bit of a lesser season just because he didn't have any turnovers through the air this year, where he was relatively known as a playmaking guy. But you're betting high. Based on the 3 prior years, you look at him and you say, all right, this is a guy we feel really comfortable with. He's going to be in a better supporting cast with Sauce Gardner out there, now Brandon Stevens, MC2, Jamian Sherwood can kind of help usher him along as that safety to linebacker hybrid in terms of how they can play off the linebacker core. Chris Godwin, he got himself an extension. Khalil Mack got himself a new 1-year deal. DJ Reed is with the Lions. Amari Cooper is an option. Yeah, they haven't updated these. Okay. So Amari Cooper would be an option. He's a guy that has continued to be underrated, right? I don't know what his value would be or what we're really looking at with a guy like him. But this would be a veteran option that I would say would be a huge plus with Garrett Wilson being out there as well, right? The question is, how much more do you want a X-style receiver as opposed to a guy that would be someone that can play the same sort of role, right? A Z receiver can do flank stuff, can do all the intermediate to short range things. I think what would separate Amari Cooper is he's been much more effective in the deep game than what we've seen out of Garrett Wilson, and you know exactly what you're going to be getting out of him. So I haven't seen any connection, but I would say that He would be a solid option in lieu of what they're saying here about some of the more recent drops he's been suffering through. Ronnie Stanley got a big contract. Sam Darnold got a big contract with the Seahawks. I don't know if we target edge in free agency, at least not a top tier guy, right? One of the names I put out from my video earlier today was the Rams' Michael Holt as a potential like Michael Clemens type level replacement. I think the Jets would be relatively comfortable having Will McDonald, having Jermaine Johnson, having who's our third rotational guy? Oh, I guess we're technically relying on Michael Clemens, right? Because it would have been Hassan Reddick before, and thank God he's with the Bucks. We move away from that entire drama. So you do need a third rotational guy. I don't know how high we try to aim for that particular guy, right? Diggs, I don't see being an option. Again, Reddick is gone. Charvarius Ward, I would say any other cornerback conversations are tabled now with us looking at Brandon Stevens. Osa got himself a big contract. Milton Williams got himself a big contract. Malcolm Kuntz. He's coming off a significant injury, so I don't know if he would be a guy that we would want to target at that position. And even if we did, I'm pretty sure I saw that Marcus Davenport with the Lions ended up returning to them. But I would have assumed they would have dipped into the Lions pool to go and get a guy that he's more comfortable with. Cam Robinson could be an option, right? Let's see. I don't know how he's done with the Vikings. So they mentioned it looks like he had top tier pass blocking ability, but I feel like he's a guy that's just kind of been slowly but surely falling further and further off from really being able to capitalize on what really made him a day one draft pick and what really made him exciting as a guy. To fall off with the Vikings, when good teams lose good players, I tend to want to dive in a lot more into what's the reason for that. Is it a cap thing as opposed to anything that's happening from a skill standpoint, or an injury that snuck up and got him? Obviously, Fields is with us. Greenlaw with the re-signing of Sherwood, not really necessary. Zach Bond's gone. A lot. Keep this in mind because I wonder if this will be something that the Jets pay attention to as we, in the future years, start to deal with our in-house free agents. We got ahead of the curve with a lot of these other teams that went ahead and re-signed their off-ball linebackers that were relatively regarded as one of the better ones in the NFL. We got ahead of that curve as well, right? And it's going to save us money. The same thing that you saw. Who's the cornerback that just got themselves a pretty significant deal? 1 second. Who was it? J.C. Horn. J.C. Horn with the Panthers, right? So he got himself a $100 million contract, $108 million contract, $70 million guaranteed. Sauce Gardner, that man might crack something close to $100 million in guaranteed money. I understand it was a down year and all of that, but when you look at his entire body of work, that man is worth the top tier money. And just from a trait standpoint and all that stuff alone, again, comparing that with the film he's put up, he's going to make himself some big money. I don't see us being in the running back market as well, right? Don't need a center. Safety, I think, would be the more intriguing one. So the reason I'm not as high on getting somebody like the name's escaping me, Javon Holland. The reason I'm not as sold on he needs to be the guy is because I like a lot of what's going on with this class. Hufanga would be a great option. I think I lean towards Morik from the the Raiders, for example. But I mean, we'll see, right? Hufanga brings the recent injury history, so maybe there's a scare there. I don't see us investing in a spot starting guard, right? It's going to be some kind of backup play, which is why we tendered Xavier Newman. Tevin Jenkins lost his tackle job. He's been converted to guard. I don't see somebody wanting to convert him back to tackle. Out on Kevin Zeitler. I don't see us targeting Hopkins. James Daniels is out. Tyron Smith is most likely retiring. Marquise Brown. So one of the wide receivers that I really, really liked, again, covered in the breakdown video, is Commanders' Dyami Brown. Not only do I think that he could massively outplay, you could probably pay him $2 to $3 million per year. It's going to be a significant enough pay bump for him, but he could potentially massively outproduce that, right? From a statistical standpoint with his production. And you could see him blow up and you'd have him for a steal for, 2 years or something crazy like that, right? If not him, then I think it does make sense to maybe look at somebody else like a Marquise Brown. I just never really loved the hands from him. I know he had that one awesome season with the Ravens, and generally I would put a lot of stock in that because Lamar Jackson hasn't necessarily created a ton of elite wide receivers. In that same token, it's not like these guys have gone on to other places to just have massive success. And of course, he has the former first-round pedigree, but it's something about Marquise Brown's game that it doesn't really move the needle for me. Now, tight end wise, I would say look at all the options, right? Juwan Johnson, I think, is going to be the star of the dance here. I think from a number standpoint, maybe he's priced out of our range. Don't necessarily love the age either, but if it's him versus Conklin, I want Juwan. Although you're probably taking a step back as a whole because he's going to be more of your receiving threat. And I think we're going to have a strong emphasis in the run game, right? So he might not just fit the aesthetic of what we're looking to do, but if you feel like you're comfortable enough, again, Tanner Engstrand here, to where you don't mind maybe a minor step back, or maybe he just gives you adequate blocking production, Juwan Johnson's probably the guy to lean to. He kept me in a lot of fantasy games last year, so... Darius Slayton, I think he's a sneaky option, but again, I do prefer somebody that has a little bit of size here in the wide receiver room. I know I mentioned Dyami Brown, but realistically, not only do we need another boundary guy, but we also need somebody out of the slot. With Dyami, you can at least argue that the speed he's going to provide will maybe be an exception to the rule when it comes to maybe getting a smaller guy to play some snaps on the outside. If Sauce doesn't travel with the wide receiver one every week, he shouldn't get top 5 cornerback money. I hear what you're saying. He should absolutely be traveling the top guy every week. And I do think that happens under Aaron Glenn and company, right? At least to a much higher degree than what we've seen. But even if he doesn't, he does so well in off-man coverage, zone, man coverage, etc. The weakness to his game that we really can't stand is the fact that man doesn't want to put his shoulder pad into anybody whatsoever. If you take that, and of course the Butterfingers, but if you take that out from a skill point standpoint, when it comes to being able to just lock his man up or make plays on the ball, you're not going to just outright say that there's many guys doing better than him. Baron Browning, edge guy, Levi Onwu. We're gonna leave it at that. Levi Onwu here, I think, would be an excellent pickup for the Jets as well. I'm just going to skim through and kind of highlight some of the names. If there's anybody that stands out that I have some familiarity with and think would be a good option for us. The Colts did have an underrated line, D-line, by the way. I would say don't let the way that their season played out dissuade you from anything. They have some secret talents over there. Dio is a guy that I think I think there's a lot of meat left on the bones when it comes to him. Now, it's not like I've done breakdowns and really paid a ton of attention. I honestly haven't even looked at a ton of edge guys out here just because I like what the Jets already have in building. And I think you also have some of the UDFA pieces that maybe can take that step. In addition to this defensive line class just being awesome as well. But this was one of the names that stuck out early as one of the options that I saw could be a great value on, day 2, day 3 of free agency. Alaric Jackson. So this would be nice, but he doesn't seem like he's in right tackle territory. Chase Young would be a good dart throw, right? But I'm pretty sure I saw that he's going back with the Saints. I could be mistaken about that, but again, you want to get some of those highly athletic, freaky profile type guys that you can throw in that room. And again, one of the better coaching staffs on paper, in my opinion, based on pedigree and history that we've been able to see here. Justin Reed would be a good option. So there's pieces out here, right? BJ Hill. We still have DJ Jones from the Broncos that's sitting out there, I think. I feel like I saw him sign a 2-year deal somewhere, but I think I might just be kind of having a little bit of brain rot here. So there's plenty of guys, right? When we look at free agency, I think ultimately we haven't seen a ton of moves from the Jets. And in my opinion, that's perfectly fine, right? They don't need to go out here it's not the season for us. Even in a win now season, as Aaron Glenn has mentioned, you don't want to have to go there and make those kind of decisions where you're spending crazy money at safety, you're spending crazy money at cornerback, at quarterback, you're going out there and trading for, a DK Metcalf type guy and having to give out a $150 million, $180 million, whatever he landed on with him. I did also just get an alert. I did see, by the way, there was talks of this, but it looks like we officially placed the right of first refusal, the tender to Tony Adams. So he should be returning. And if not, I believe the way that tender works out is that we will get some sort of draft pick back for him due to not matching whatever deal he gets, right? I don't see anything else in the way of new news here. We will, let's see, right at first. Yeah, so we can match anything that comes out for him. So couple of things going on here, right? Let's wrap this piece up. I will give you guys a chance if anybody wants to jump back on again. Links in the chat. So let's recap day 1 as we have it so far, right? So we have officially added a new quarterback. And again, based off numbers, this is the way I'm putting it. QB1 in Justin Fields. We have a new cornerback 2 in Brandon Stephens. Here's the weird piece about how our free agency is, though. Well, I'll save that. Let's just get into it. So new QB1, new cornerback 2. You have one of your starting safeties back in Tony Adams, at least as of now, unless somebody else offers him something. And you have your, I guess, would you consider Jamion Sherwood LB1? We'll call him LB2, right? So LB2, CB2, QB1, all locked into place. You have a starting safety back, and you still have a lot of these guys that we want to target for other key depth positions that are out there. I forgot where I was going with the comments. Oh, so one of the interesting pieces to me is that, nope, and I lost it again. Where was I going with that? It was something around our in-house free agents. Oh, no, it was about our free agents. So when you look at Brandon Stephens, when you look at Justin Fields, these are guys that I guess technically in Justin Fields' case, he's coming off of maybe one of his better seasons, right? Or at least one of his better stretches of games that he's played. But even in Brandon Stephens' case, it's a bit of a downtick, right, for him relative to where he was playing prior to that. So it feels like we've overpaid for some of these guys. And here's the thing with this. This is kind of where you get into that same old Jets conversation piece, because yes, with the hysteria, with the stigma that's attached to the New York Jets, with the taxes, and we can't forget about that piece as well. The money that these guys are actually receiving, they're not truly getting. You might as well go ahead and, tear half of that away from them. You're going to have to overpay to a certain degree. Weather concerns, the stadium with the turf. There's a lot that kind of could go into this decision outside of just whatever's happening on the roster and how they feel about coaching staff and all that kind of stuff. So we were going to have to slightly overpay, I feel like, for any free agent that we sign on day one. And I feel like that's most likely going to be the case, even if and when we start to have a decent level of success with this franchise, right? And I'm talking about the consistent playoff expectations, consistently actually reaching the playoffs, different things of that nature. So you're at a disadvantage for a number of reasons. Now, the Buffalo Bills is the ideal comparison here, right, when it comes to free agency in the long-term view, in my mind, because they're rewarding let's just say like 70 to 80% of their personal draft picks that have been able to live up to the level of expectations, or they've outperformed their draft slot. So that's key factor number one, right? That's the reason that I loved looking at teams like the Broncos. Is what I loved about the Ravens. Is what I loved about teams like the Packers. These are guys that know how to reward their guys first, and then they look outside for answers if they just couldn't get something done, or if truly they just didn't have somebody in-house that they felt good about. So the second piece is, when they are giving out contracts to these guys, they are finding ways to get a little bit of a discount when they're bringing some of these guys in. You look at Joshua Palmer, you look at Von Miller when he's coming over, right? Nobody looked at a ton of, and I'm just throwing Joshua Palmer because he's the most recent signing, right? But when they make some of these mega deal type stuff, Stephon Diggs, nobody's saying that they're breaking the bank and this is really like a huge overpayment in a lot of these cases. A lot of those conversations generally live up to how elite will these guys look with this team based on what they have around them and stuff like that. So a lot of the onus ends up being turned back to the player and how they'll contribute and be able to work themselves and integrate into what was currently already operating at a high level with those teams, as opposed to what the contract values look like and why it may or may not be a terrible deal, just surface level, knee-jerk reaction type stuff. So we'll see. We shall see. I'm curious if we do get any kind of last-minute deals here. I know Joe Douglas was a guy that you had to watch up until like the last hour, right? You get a deal that comes through at like 11 o'clock at night, 1 something in the morning. I don't know if you get that same kind of vibe from Darren Muji. Also, I don't know how much with some of the, again, late steps, putting together the front office, putting together the coaching staff, them actually officially being able to collaborate. You have to jump into your own roster first before you can even discuss free agency in the draft. You had events that you would want to catch up on, like Shrine Bowl and Senior Bowl, stuff like that. So I wonder how much emphasis they actually put on free agency in this case, as opposed to whatever they want to do in terms of targeting guys in the draft and stuff like that. Also another discussion point. Instead of signing a $20 million bridge quarterback and a $12 million cornerback with a 107%. Yeah. Yeah, I think he had a 106.8 quarterback rating when targeted last year, something like that. And even in his best year, it was, I want to say, an 80.7 from what I saw. Not the number to go by, but it does give you an ideal vision of how well they perform, right? You look at DJ Reed and Sauce Gardner for comparison's sake, right? I think at one point Sauce was holding guys to like a 20 or 30 passer rating. DJ Reed was holding guys to like a 40, 50. So definitely a bit of a drop off, definitely a bit of a downgrade here. I think on that note, let me dig around. Let me see if there's any other news. I know I wanted to get into. I guess we could talk about this real quick. So let's just take a look at some of the moves that the Bills and the Patriots have made real quick. So, what are the Bills working with? Let's go here. All right. So the Bills, long snapper re-signed. They get rid of Von Miller. You know what? This isn't as good of a. Hold on. That's not quite the tracker I was looking for. Is this their free agency one? Nope. Okay. This looks a little bit better. Instead of signing, okay, chat about that one. I think we're gonna move Stevens to say, yeah, but if you're gonna pay him, what was the average? It was 23 over 3, right? So if you're giving him a basically somewhere between $6 and $8 million annually to be a safety, and not even one that you necessarily feel is going to be better than anybody that you probably pay 3 or 4 million extra for to get, and you know exactly what you're getting and what you feel really comfortable with. I don't love the idea. Chin was one of my top guys when I went on Jet Central show and we chatted about free agency, like a month ago, and some of the guys that we really liked. He was in the Javon Holland camp. I was in the Jeremy Chin camp. I think that guy is a superstar waiting to blossom, and you got a chance to see it with the Commanders. You even seen strong flashes of it with the Panthers before. I think Everio, I don't know if he was there or not by the time they decided to move on from him, but Panthers kind of ruined him. You've seen it with the Commanders with the bounce back. And again, I guess this would be the sell for Brandon Stevens, right? And I kind of talked about this earlier, but this coaching staff, any cornerback, any safety that's stepping in here, I assume is going to get, let's call it a 2+ bump, right? They have Aaron Glenn that'll be able to provide fantastic fundamentals and execution. Steve Wilkes, also former secondary background specialist. And then you have the safety coach as well, in addition to the cornerback coach that you feel good about. These guys should be at the top of their games at all times. You shouldn't really look at a game where guys are just getting beat left, right, and center all game long. Pickett was traded to the Browns. That's an interesting move. They needed to do something though, because they're they're in shambles at quarterback, and it needed to be something that was going to be savvy. And it looks like the Eagles got back Dorian Thompson Robinson. Okay, I'm not mad at that. Yeah, I'm not mad at that at all. He got beat a lot in Baltimore at cornerback. Yeah, but that was mostly last year. Not to say I'm giving him a pass or anything crazy from the year before, but it's not like he was always getting killed. He's not a shutdown by any means, though, but he at least has the traits for that to kind of work in his favor. So we'll see. The Bills, let's run through real quick. So a lot of in-house stuff. Externally, Josh Palmer, he got a 3-year contract. They re-signed their guard, backup quarterback, tight end, here's their long snapper, left tackle, and these were the big money items, right? Khalil Shakir, Terrell Bernard, Greg Rousseau, Josh Allen. I think I want to say they have almost like 450 to like $500 million in guaranteed money between like just these 2 guys, just these 4 guys. I panic when the Jets are paying anybody over $20 million, and every one of these guys is getting, damn near $250,000 of money. And then let me look at what the Patriots had going on as well real quick. And then if you guys have closing thoughts, drop them in. Otherwise, I will be wrapping up here pretty shortly after this. Where is a good tracker for them? But this one doesn't give the contract totals. What's good, Dart? All right, I might have to go base off this one. I'll just make this one work. So, Patriots have decided they got all the money in the world. So Milton Williams, the DT, they gave him $104 million. I want to say he had like 70 million in guarantees. Does it tell me? I don't see it on the surface level here. But yeah, he got the bag, basically, is what we're getting at. Morgan Moses, obviously, they stole from us. I'm not super mad at this move again. I think we could have made the contract work that he got. But between some of the first options in round 1, round 2, assuming we trade back, or if any of you are extremely high on Mbu, for example, there's options that you could feel comfortable with, right? Here's the thing, compared to where we've been, having a hole at right tackle is not going to make or break. It shouldn't anyways make or break our ability to do things on the offense. You're going to have somebody that should be able to give you at least a relatively solid performance. It's not like we need anybody to be spectacular. Carlton Davis, he gets the back from as well, 60 million. Robert Spillane gets 37. They trade for David Gacho. So this is kind of what we expected, right? I think this was the conversation around when we expected that we might be able to land Mike Vrabel. We knew that he was going to try to build up the trenches as well, make sure make sure Drake May is protected. Then you only have to worry about the weapons. And then defensively, make sure you can get after guys with your front four and you don't have to just rely on blitzing, 55% of the time. And being able to go and pair them up with somebody. And they needed somebody, right? Christian Barmore is coming off of that blood clot issue type thing for them. So 55 years a fan, I'm not happy with these moves. Yeah, I can't blame you. Justin Fields, clearly I'm not really sold on one way or the other. The Brandon Stevens move wasn't one that I really expected to see whatsoever. That felt like he kind of came out of left field, but if they prove me wrong, they prove me wrong, right? I won't be mad over not being right because I felt like a certain guy wasn't going to be good and he was good. Same thing like when these guys actually turned out to suck. I'm not rooting on the fact that I was right or the fact that they should have went elsewhere, right? Nobody's going to come up and call me and be like, hey, we've been watching your lives and your videos and we see you got a pretty solid hit rate or whatever. Come be assistant GM or GM for the Jets. None of that's going to happen. So they get my full support. It is what it is. The signings have happened. They've got the contracts on paper. They have my full support. I do, and this is where things like the breakdown videos and stuff get interesting for me, right? Because now we go in, we look at Justin Fields, we look at Brandon Stevens, we say, what are the clear positives with these guys? What do they do well 9 times out of 10? What's the reasons that these guys haven't been able to succeed? Where's the negatives, the opportunities? And then you can start trying to theorize and craft a plan around, all right, how do you not only develop what they're missing in this skill set, but how do you solution around that, right? Is it just the fact that play calling didn't necessarily allow them to work on those traits, right? They just didn't have the plays to develop that part of their game, or it's something that you want to stray away from, or, what does that whole plan look like? That's the stuff that gets really, really fun to me. And I think we have enough X's and O's type guys in the building to where you can figure that stuff out. Jared and Chin plus a kicker for the same money. Yeah, I'm curious what Jeremy Chin signs for whenever that news breaks. And we could still get him, right? If Jeremy Chin gets signed, I'm going to be hype. on the internally. I don't really do the external emotions, but if we get Jeremy Chin, I'm going to be ecstatic. I haven't looked at kickers either though, so I don't know who we would look at to be a great option for us. I would imagine you'll want to go draft. And there's nobody that's, going to end up being like a crazy second round pick or anything, from my understanding so far. But I think you try to strike gold with somebody young. I don't know if we would have got all three of those guys for the same money. Maybe you pay a little bit more into that point. Yeah, I would probably roll with that trio over what we got. But yeah. Oh, he did get picked up. $8 million for 2 years. Where did he go? Hold on. Oh, that sucks. That's tough. 2-year deal with the Raiders. Damn. For $16 million. Yeah, sign me up for that all day. I would have paid that price tag. I'd have paid that price tag with the quickness. Well, on that note, let me get back to the things that pay the bills. Appreciate you guys coming to kick it. Maybe I'll try to do a stream for tomorrow, maybe the third day as well. My calendar might be taken up a little bit, but appreciate you guys kicking it. Stay tuned. The free agent scouting breakdown videos are going to be coming. And then again, in about a week here or so, I'm going to start dropping some of the draft content. Tony, do me a favor, my man. I keep telling him because if you guys ever watch the videos and you look at the comments, he's always dropping gems in there. Pay attention to that man. It's not a perfect hit rate. Nobody does, but that man has some scouting gems for us in terms of what looks like these guys are what looks like will make these guys successful or not, right? And his thoughts on whether it's good or not. Tony, you got to start dropping some videos, or we got to find a way to link and I get you on the stream, or we'll do a video collab or something. But you gotta get some content out there for us, my man. We can't just rely on Dom C to give us everything we need. But again, appreciate you guys for coming through. I will catch you guys again. Hope you enjoy the rest of day one, and we'll see what happens over the course of the rest of today and leading into the rest of the week. Have a good one.